By 2013, Ukraine was standing at a crossroads, not just politically, but historically. One path led west, toward Europe, toward integration with Western economies, and possibly NATO. And for a moment, it looked like Ukraine had made its choice. Ukraine's government was preparing to sign a major agreement with the European Union, a deal that would bring it closer to the West than ever before. But then, everything changed. At the last second, Ukraine's president pulled out. He rejected the deal and chose closer ties with Russia. That decision ignited something no one could control. Thousands of people flooded the streets of Kyiv, protesting, demanding change, refusing to accept the decision. But this wasn't just a protest anymore. It became a movement, a revolution. Clashes broke out. Police pushed back. Protesters held their ground. Violence escalated, day by day, week by week, until finally, in early 2014, the government collapsed. The president fled, Ukraine's leadership changed, and just like that, the country shifted direction toward the West. For Russia, this wasn't just a political shift, it was something else entirely. Because in southern Ukraine, there's a region called Crimea. Strategically critical, home to Russia's Black Sea Fleet, a military lifeline. And in 2014, Russia made a move. Unmarked soldiers appeared. No insignia, no official declaration, just presence, control, precision. Within weeks, Crimea was effectively under Russian control. A referendum was held, and Russia annexed the region. The world reacted immediately. Sanctions, condemnations, political outrage. But Russia didn't back down, because from their perspective, they had just secured something vital. And then, things spread. In eastern Ukraine, pro-Russian groups began to rise, armed, organized, supported, directly or indirectly. What followed was a war. Fighting broke out between Ukrainian forces and separatist regions. Cities turned into battlegrounds, civilians caught in the middle. This wasn't a full-scale invasion, not yet. This was something else, a grey zone, a conflict that existed just below the threshold of global war. And for years, that's where it stayed. From 2015 onward, the conflict didn't end, but it didn't fully explode either. It froze. Ceasefires were attempted, agreements were signed, but violations continued. Sporadic fighting, constant tension. And during this time, something else was happening. Ukraine was getting closer to the West. More training, more cooperation, more military support. Step by step, the alignment deepened, and Russia was watching, carefully, patiently. Then, 2021. Russian troops began gathering near Ukraine's borders. Not a few thousand, not symbolic, tens of thousands. Tanks, artillery, missile systems, all moving into position. The world noticed. Leaders spoke out. Warnings were issued, but no one knew for sure what would happen next. February 24th, 2022. Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Missiles hit major cities. Troops crossed borders from multiple directions. North, east, south. This wasn't limited. This wasn't contained. This was war. The world reacted instantly. Sanctions hit Russia's economy. Global markets shook. Energy prices surged. And NATO moved quickly. Not into direct combat, but into support, weapons, funding, intelligence, everything Ukraine needed to resist. And just like that, the conflict transformed. Because now, this wasn't just Russia versus Ukraine. This was Russia against a system. A proxy war between nuclear powers, fought on one battlefield, but felt across the world. And this is where things become dangerous, because once a war reaches this level, there are only two directions left: de-escalation or something much bigger. And how close we are to that is the question no one can answer. At this point, the war in Ukraine had already changed the world. But what most people didn't realize was how close it brought everyone to something far worse. Because behind the scenes, this wasn't just Ukraine fighting for survival. Music subtly rises. This was the beginning of something else. Section card. The invisible line from the outside. It looked like a regional war, contained, limited, sharper. But in reality, there was an invisible line. Pause. Tension. A line that neither side wanted to cross. Cut down moment. Because crossing it means world war. NATO made a decision early on. They would support Ukraine, but they would not fight Russia directly. So instead, they sent everything else. Advanced weapons, air defense systems, long-range artillery, intelligence support, training, billions of dollars flowing into Ukraine's defense. Pause. And it worked. Section card. The shift on the battlefield. Ukraine didn't collapse. It resisted. Hard. Sound counterattack momentum. Russian advances slowed. In some areas, they were pushed back. Beat. And suddenly, this wasn't a quick operation anymore. Cut down moment. This became a long war, a grinding conflict, measured in months, then years. Section card. Russia's calculation, music darker, strategic. From Russia's perspective, something had changed. Pause. They weren't just fighting Ukraine anymore. Beat. Lower. They were fighting a NATO-backed system. Cut down moment. Not direct, but undeniable. Because every weapon delivered, every piece of intelligence shared, every dollar sent, made Ukraine stronger and made the war harder for Russia to win. Pause. So Russia adapted. Section card. Escalation without declaration. They increased missile strikes, targeted infrastructure, energy grids, supply routes, sound power outages, darkness, trying to break resistance without triggering direct NATO involvement. Beat. Because both sides understood something critical. Music drops to near silence, quiet, intense. If NATO and Russia fight directly, everything changes. Section card. The nuclear shadow. Music, low, ominous drone. This is the part no one likes to talk about, but it's always there. Pause. Nuclear weapons. Both NATO countries and Russia have them. Beat thousands. Cut down moment. Enough to end everything, more than once. And because of that, every decision in this conflict is calculated, careful, measured. Pause. Because one mistake, one miscalculation, silence, 2 seconds, whisper, could escalate beyond control. Section card. The balancing act. Music, slow ticking. plus heartbeat. So both sides walk a line. NATO sends support, but avoids direct combat. Beat Russia escalates pressure, but avoids attacking NATO territory. Pause. It's a balance, a fragile one. Cut down moment. Push too far, and it breaks. And the risk isn't just intentional escalation. Music shifts, uneasy tone. It's accidents, misinterpretations, unexpected events, a missile landing in the wrong place, a drone crossing a border, a signal misunderstood. Pause. In a high-tension environment, small moments can trigger massive consequences. Section card, global ripple effect, music expanding, cinematic, and even without direct war, the effects spread globally. Energy markets shaken, fuel prices rising, food supplies disrupted, because Ukraine and Russia are major players in global exports. Pause. And when they're at war, the world feels it. Cut down moment. A war in one region impacts everyone. Economies shift, alliances tighten, new power structures begin to form. Section card. The bigger game. Music, deep, strategic. And here's where it goes beyond Europe. Other countries are watching, carefully: China, Iran, others with global ambitions. Cut down moment. Because this sets a precedent. If Russia succeeds, it changes global expectations. Beat, if it fails, that sends a different message. Pause. And every major power is learning from this. Section card. Act 4, peak moment. Music, intense, rising. So now we arrive at the real question. Pause. How close are we to something bigger? Silence, 2 seconds. Low, direct. Because right now, beat, you have a nuclear superpower in active conflict. Beat being supported by the most powerful military alliance in history. Music hits hard, and both sides are trying not to cross the line. Cut down moment. But the line is getting thinner. Act 4. End transition. Music fades to slow, haunting. And that's what makes this moment so dangerous. Pause. Because wars don't always escalate on purpose. Beat. Sometimes they escalate by accident. Black screen, final card. And if that happens, there's no going back. Up until now, this story has looked like a conflict. Russia versus Ukraine. NATO supporting from the sidelines. But that's not the full picture, because beneath the surface, this isn't just about territory, not just about security, and not just about Ukraine. This is about something much bigger. Section card. The real battle. Global influence for decades. The world has operated under a system, a structure of power, led primarily by the West. Economic influence, military alliances, global institutions. At the center of it, one dominant force. The Western-led world order. But that system has been slowly changing. New powers have been rising, economically, militarily, strategically. Some don't agree with how the current system works. Some see it as balanced, others see it as controlled by the same group of countries. Section card. Russia's bigger goal from this perspective. Russia's actions take on a different meaning. Not just about stopping NATO expansion, it's about pushing back against the system itself, challenging the rules of the game. NATO expands, Western influence grows. Decisions often favor one side of the world. Visual, symbolic balance tipping. Russia isn't just reacting, it's sending a message that the current balance of power can be challenged. Section card. Why the world is watching. That's why this war matters far beyond Europe. Other countries are paying attention, very close attention. They're watching how far the West will go. They're watching how much pressure Russia can withstand. And most importantly, they're watching who wins. Because the outcome changes everything. Section card: the multipolar world. For years, experts have talked about a shift from a unipolar world to a multipolar one. A world where power isn't concentrated in one place. Multiple regions, alliances, centers of influence, and this conflict is accelerating that shift. Section card: what if Russia succeeds? If Russia holds ground or achieves its objectives, it sends a signal that resistance works, that the system can be challenged and survive, that global power isn't fixed, alliances can be tested, and that changes how other nations act. Section card: what if Russia fails? But if Russia fails, that sends a different message, that the current system holds, that the balance stays the same, that pushing against it comes at a high cost, and that reinforces existing power structures. Section card: the hidden competition. Here's the twist within the twist. Even countries not directly involved are part of this story. Trade, energy, diplomacy. Every decision ripples outward. Every sanction, every alliance, every move is part of a larger game. A game bigger than war. Section card: information warfare. It's not just fought on battlefields, it's fought with information, narratives, media, perception. Because controlling how people see the conflict can be just as powerful as controlling territory. Section card: Act 5, peak moment. So when you look at this war, you're not just looking at a conflict, you're looking at a turning point. A moment where the global system is being tested, pushed, and potentially reshaped. This is history, happening in real time. And that leads to a different question. Not just what happens between nations, but what it means for everyone else. Black screen card. Because this doesn't stay on the battlefield. At this point, it's easy to see this as distant, a war far away, leaders behind closed doors, maps shifting, borders changing. Pause. But the truth is, this doesn't stay there, because in today's world, everything is connected. Section card. The hidden connection. Every country depends on others. Energy, food, technology. When conflict hits major players, connections start to break. Cut down moment. And when connections break, the world feels it. Section card. Energy shock. Music. Low tension pulse. Take energy. Russia is one of the world's largest exporters of oil and gas. Pause. When war disrupts supply, prices rise. Beat. Not just in Europe, everywhere. Transportation costs climb. Electricity increases. Businesses raise prices. Cut down moment. And suddenly, everything costs more. Section card. Food supply impact. Music, subtle emotional. Then there's food. Ukraine and Russia export grain, wheat, corn, essentials. Pause. When exports are disrupted, supply tightens. Beet prices rise, shortages happen. In some parts of the world, it's critical. Cut down moment. For some, it becomes survival. Section card. Economic ripple effect. Music, slow, heavy, zoom out. Markets react to uncertainty. Investments shift. Currencies fluctuate. Jobs are affected. Pause. Even thousands of miles away, you feel it. Cut down moment. Because global conflict hits local lives. Section card. Security and the digital world. Music, subtle digital tones. It's not just physical. There's another battlefield. Cyber. Attacks on infrastructure, networks, daily systems, power grids, banks, communications. Cut down moment. War without borders. Section card. The psychological effect. Music. Softer, introspective. And then there's uncertainty, a constant background tension. People feel it, even if they don't realize it. When the world feels unstable, it changes how we think, plan, and live. Section card. Act 6. Peak moment. Music. Emotional build. Vo. Slow. Powerful. So this isn't just a distant war. It's part of your world. Pause. In your fuel prices, your food, your economy, your future. Cut down moment. You're closer to it than you think. So where does this go from here? Pause. Does the conflict slowly fade into a frozen standoff? Beat. Does one side gain the upper hand and force a resolution? Pause. Or does something unexpected happen? Because history has shown the most significant moments are often the ones no one predicts. Beat, lower, intense, and right now, pause. The world is in one of those moments, a moment that could define the future. Whisper, balanced between stability, beat, and escalation, fade to black. If you made it this far, you now understand something most people don't. Pause. This isn't just a headline, it's a turning point. Beat. So if you want to stay ahead of it, not just reacting, but understanding. Pause, firm, subscribe. Beat. Because the next video might explain the moment. Everything changes. Don't miss it.